I mean, so far this is exactly like. There's a couple points that are a little off, but this is pretty much exactly the video I thought it would be. And I think he's making some great points. Really making some great points. I'm really enjoying being able to just kind of take this content because pretty much at this point I am in 100% agreement. Hey guys, I need you to do me a favor. Help me fight the algorithm. Go ahead and hit like, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell icon for new notifications. Thank you. I hear there's a Chris Stuckmann thing going on. Are you guys familiar with this? A YouTuber named Chris Stuckmann? I don't know if you guys are familiar. Apparently he's causing a little kick up over his over his Madam Web review. And you know what? I want to go ahead and watch that, and then I want to see some of the reaction. And by some of the reaction, I mean we're going to look at EFAPs and see what Say said. Obviously, we're not going to go over the whole thing. Yeah, I will go ahead and go over, tell you guys my thoughts on Chris Stuckmann. I've always thought he was a good reviewer. I always thought like he did a good job trying to actually analyze a movie, like the aspects of making a movie, and having fun with it. I always felt like there was a passion with him with movies, and I think that is a key thing I feel is missing from a lot of movie guys on YouTube right now. I feel like the first wave of movie guys, you got like guys like Chris Stuckmann, you got Jeremy Johns, you got Red Letter Media, you got Your Movie Sucks. These guys, yeah, they would spend time making fun of movies, like bad movies, but you did get the impression that like they understood movies and the art of movies and the art of making movies, and they loved it and they appreciate it. Like even if they made fun of a bad movie, you got the impression they appreciated the art and loved movies. And I will be blunt, when it comes to guys like Mahler and Rags, I do not get the impression they love movies. I mean, in fact, in his reaction video to me, Rags says his least favorite movie of all time is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
And no, I don't think that Kenobi is the worst thing ever. It's not even the worst thing I've seen recently. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I think that's the worst movie I've ever seen. I think that's the worst thing ever.
And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can dislike that movie, that's fine. I liked it, but like if you don't like it, that's fine. But somehow, in all the movies you've seen in your life, if you think that is the worst movie you've ever seen, then it tells me not only have you not seen many movies, but you obviously don't have a passion to go into movies and really research it. Because when you are looking, like, when you love movies, you will track down bad movies sometimes just to watch them and see, what makes it bad, what makes it tick. Why do some bad movies have a legacy, like The Room or Samurai Cop? They're bad. They're really fucking bad. But what makes them tick? And the fact that he doesn't want to dive into anything like that and just wants to call Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness the worst movie of all time tells me he's not really interested in movies. Frankly, that's what it tells me. Maybe that's unfair of me to say, but it just gives off that impression. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into this Chris Stuckmann video. Yes, I am very much subscribed to Chris Stuckmann because he's awesome. But let's see what he says about Madam Web here. I have to talk about this. Chris Stuckmann discusses Sony's Spider-Man universe and the poor treatment of writers and directors in the film industry. Now, apparently, to my understanding, he doesn't... let me make sure you guys can hear it. He doesn't review movies he doesn't like because because he doesn't like the landscape of what's happened on YouTube and how everybody's just negative all the time. So when there's a movie he doesn't like, he typically doesn't talk about it. But so let's see what he says about this.
So I just saw Madam Web. There was no screening for it in my area. There were no late night showings before the day, so I had to go see it on Valentine's Day. And I thought to myself, probably not going to do a video for this one based off of what I've heard, since I do try to keep it mostly about film celebration on this channel. Having seen the film, I'm going to tell you that this is not a movie review of Madam Web. I am not about bashing filmmakers, artists. I know how hard it is to make a movie. I do not know how hard it is to make a movie under the studio system. I was able to make an indie film.
Real quick, I have worked on movie sets, but I've never made a movie. I have worked probably more extensively. I've done lots of TV work. That can get hard. Like I've done like news broadcasts and stuff like that, mainly camera work and stuff like that. Even that can get hard. But like, yeah, I've worked on TV shows, and it can be a lot of work just going into the details, trying to figure out everything there is about it. So yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into these, and that's another thing. Like, I feel like I don't like, it's not required to be a film critic to have experience and like understanding on how to make stuff, but like, it doesn't hurt. I mean, it's also worth noting, like, I did a year where I minored in film at Ohio University. The only reason I didn't finish that degree is because I ran out of money. But like, I found the classes absolutely fascinating. I loved studying it.
Without a giant corporation breathing down my neck, which is not the privilege that S.J. Clarkson had when she directed Madam Web under Sony, which I can only imagine was monumentally difficult. This is not going to be a video about Madam Web and telling you whether or not you should see Madam Web. There are plenty of people on this platform, as well as a website dedicated to aggregating reviews and giving it a number that's going to inform you of that, and you can choose to listen to those voices if you want. The information is out there. What I am compelled to make a video about is something that I heard pretty much every writer, some directors, and most actors bashing last year, and that is movie studios. But before we go any further, I do want to give a special thank you to the sponsor for this video, BetterHelp. The past few years have been so life-changing for me, becoming a father, dealing with the Hollywood strikes, making my first movie. It has been such a privilege to have something like BetterHelp to. That link helps support this channel, but it also gives you 10% off your. Thank you so much to BetterHelp for.
So I like Chris Stuckmann, but it does drive me nuts when bigger channels like him go ahead and sell ad space. Maybe it's a good company, but I think I watched an Angry Video Game Nerd the other day with my son, and he was like hawking some VPN, and I'm like, dude, you get like 1 million views on these videos easy. You don't need to do this. Like, what are you doing, man? I mean, I actually decided like it was shortly after I decided to start doing content like this, where it's just more me, that I've decided I'm not going to do sponsorships anymore. And I occasionally get offers still, and I'm like, nope, not doing it.
Sponsoring this video. In the case of Madam Web, this movie was put out by Sony in association with Marvel, probably not to the level of association that Tom Holland's 3 Spider-Man movies were. This video is inspired by essentially every live-action film that Sony has had some involvement in since Spider-Man 3 in the Spider-Man-verse, that being Spider-Man 3, The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, Venom, Venom Let There Be Carnage, Morbius, and Madam Web. Since it got pushed back due to the strikes last year, none of us got to see what Sony did with Kraven the Hunter, but we will this year, so I can't really comment on whether or not Sony treated that property with respect. And of course, I know that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man films don't necessarily relate to the Sony Spider-Man universe that they're trying to set up right now, nor do Andrew Garfield's movies, but this is not about that. This is about how Sony treats their characters and their properties, and more importantly, how they treat their filmmakers, and what exactly is going on, because I have so many questions. When you look at the films I mentioned that Sony has made, there's of course division from people about whether or not all of them are bad or good, and some people like more than others.
Real quick, my thoughts going into this seems very reasonable and well thought out. So far, it seems like he's going to do a critique of Sony and how they're treating Spider-Man movies, which is a valid fucking critique. They mostly suck. Just saying.
There's plenty of people who like the first Venom movie, but I think there are more people who are a little disappointed by it, and especially the Let There Be Carnage sequel. But plenty of people enjoy Spider-Man 3 well enough. I'm one of them. There's a lot of things in Spider-Man 3 that I have fun with, although it's clearly not as good as 1 or 2. And there are people who enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 quite a bit. But I think that if you were to look at a consensus, the consensus...
The Amazing Spider-Man 1, I liked it at the time, but it hasn't aged well. Amazing Spider-Man 2 was shit out the gate, and it's still shit.
...is that the live-action... Sony-based Spider-Man universe movies have not exactly all been home runs. I haven't mentioned the animated Spider-Verse films, both of them being terrific. The way I view the two Spider-Verse movies is kind of the same way I view The Invisible Man and Split and Get Out and other films that Blumhouse has produced. Because Blumhouse has produced a lot of other movies as well. But those three really do seem like, damn, where'd those come from? Some studios have really good instincts, and they can pick filmmakers and stories across the board that for the most part are going to be at least decent. I look at a studio like A24. Pretty much most of their movies, if you see a trailer for an A24 film, you can probably bet that it's not going to be terrible, that it's at least going to be decent. And maybe even really good. And I don't feel that way with every single studio. It's like a flip of a coin. You could get one of their best efforts, or you could get another one. And I do think it comes down to the filmmaker they're working with, and whether or not they back off and give that filmmaker the freedom they need to tell a cohesive, coherent story. That doesn't mean that every writer is going to be great. 2 of the writers of Madam Web worked on another film in the Sony universe that has been heavily criticized called Morbius. But sometimes what I've learned and what I've experienced myself, not on my...
So, yeah, I'm pretty much just stealing content at this point, but I did want to watch this video, and I think he's making some good points. He is making some very good points. I want to see where he goes with this. I honestly don't know what the fuck, like what's EFAP's counter to this, because he's being very reasonable here. He's being very concise with his wording. We'll see.
My film, but on scripts that I've optioned to some studios, and it went nowhere, is that when people have power over you as a creative, when they're paying your bills and they're paying you well, they can tell you to do anything, and you have to do it. No matter what. It's like that scene in Vampire's Kiss where Nicolas Cage is threatening to fire his secretary, and he says,
"You're the lowest on the totem pole here, Alva. The lowest. Do you realize that?" "That's right, Alva. It's a horrible, horrible job. I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to."
Oh god, I love that Nicolas Cage face. He's making a great point here, but I love... Oh my god, Nicolas Cage is chewing the scenery, and that face is intense.
And you have to do it. You have to, or I'll fire you. Do you understand?
Sometimes that's exactly what it feels like when you're a creative dealing with a larger entity that has control over your creation, or at least your script or your story or your characters. When they can tell you what to do and you got to do it, it doesn't matter if you think it's insane. You have to find a way to make it work. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened on Madam Web and Morbius and all these movies, but I would not be surprised. Because when I look at Sony's involvement with the Spider-Verse films, I see Lord and Miller that have had massive success on the big screen in the past.
Yeah, Lord and Miller are amazing filmmakers, in my opinion. They took 21 Jump Street, a movie that really shouldn't work, and made like 2 really funny movies, especially 22 Jump Street. Fucking hilarious, that one. And then they took Legos, and were told to make a Lego movie, and they made 2 really good, like, especially the first Lego movie, really, like, and the second one's decent, too. 2 really solid Lego movies, and we even got a Lego Batman movie, which I think they had some involvement with as well. Decent, and now they're doing those Spider-Man animated movies, and they're really fucking good. These guys are kind of amazing.
That have made a lot of money for a lot of people and have proven themselves to be very smart at what they do. And I can totally see a company like Sony saying, why don't you guys give us your best shot and then we'll give you some notes. Now, for a filmmaker like S.J. Clarkson, who made Madam Web, she's had a long and respectable career directing television, but she's directing her first movie and it's a Sony superhero movie. When I saw Madam Web earlier today, there wasn't a single part of me that thought, wow, this is just a terrible filmmaker. I could not help but see the myriad of evidence that has been laid at all of our feet that this is a studio that is simply retaining the rights to their characters, that does not care about the quality of this experience they're giving us.
True.
There's been too many examples of movies that all feel kind of the same, like a mishmashed early 2000s superhero movie. They can't seem to get out of that. No matter how many times we've said to this studio, we would prefer it if you went a different way, even with the excellent examples of their 2 Spider-Verse films. And I can't help but think, who is this for? Who wins here? Is it the audience? It seems like it isn't, guys. Is it the creatives? Definitely not. Is it the studio? Are they making a lot of money because they keep doing this over and over again? Sometimes it makes sense to make a Venom movie. It makes sense to make a Spider-Man movie. Those are characters that are going to generate money no matter what. Morbius and Madam Web, Kraven the Hunter remains to be seen. That is not the same level of reward that a studio might receive from producing a Spider-Man or a Venom movie. So why are they making them? Is it to retain the rights? Is it to get some kind of financial break? Potentially. And in that case, they probably don't care that much about each and every one of us who forks over our hard-earned money to sit in a theater on Valentine's Day when they could have been doing anything else. I care so much about the filmmaker experience, and I am so aware of how crushingly difficult it can be to make a film. But I also care a lot about the audience, and I want people like myself who go to these movies to have a good time and to feel like they invested some of their money into something that gave something back to them, that inspired them in some way or made them just...
I mean, so far, this is exactly, like, there's a couple points that are a little off, but this is pretty much exactly the video I thought it would be, and I think he's making some great points. Really making some great points. I'm really enjoying being able to just kind of take this content because pretty much at this point, I am in 100% agreement. Yes.
Happy for a couple hours. And Sony and their treatment of these characters seems to be doing the exact opposite. Currently in the industry, it's the Wild West when it comes to spec scripts especially. From what I understand, a lot of spec scripts are not even being read, very rarely in fact, unless you're a very specific kind of movie or a studio is looking for something so particular that you just so happen to be that perfect thing. From what I understand, lower budget horror is still being looked at, especially haunted house things or things that are very marketable. But in general, the industry has no idea what it's doing right now post-strikes. They have no clue. Movies are selling for almost $20 million at festivals from first-time filmmakers, and other movies that seem like they should be selling really big because of the names that are attached aren't. Nobody knows exactly what's happening right now because everyone is so beholden to this algorithm or whatever Netflix is telling them people want to see. This is creating an almost robotic-like dystopian conveyor belt of movies that we are essentially supposed to kneel at the very...
He's making some really fucking good points. I wasn't expecting him to go off on this angle, but yeah, the algorithm, the content. Patrick H. Willems actually did a video recently talking about how Netflix has kind of changed the game so that we aren't looking at movies or videos even, we're looking at content, and they're just interested in pushing content. And that, yeah, there is an issue with that when you're dealing with art.
End of open our mouth really wide and just consume, and then ask, when do we get the next conveyor belt thing that you have generated for us from your algorithm robotic AI thing, whatever that is. Because when I watched Madam Web, there wasn't a single part of me that thought a writer sat down and came up with the idea of the final fight happening underneath a giant neon Pepsi-Cola sign.
Yeah, no, unless the writer just decided to rip off the end of Highlander, yeah, I don't think so.
I just don't think a writer sat in their apartment in LA and thought, that's a good idea. I'm pretty sure Sony said, we have to incorporate Pepsi in some way and deal with it. And that's what it's like for a lot of these creatives. I just heard a story today about someone who's working with a massive entity studio, I won't say what it is, who has hired that person to write a story based off of a very interesting hook. He wrote the whole script, came back to them, and they said, you know what, we don't really like that hook anymore, but we still like your story. Can you make it work without the hook?
No.
And this poor writer is trying to figure out how in the world they got hired to write a story based off of an idea and are now told to write the exact same story, but without the idea. And that's exactly the type of situation that so many writers find themselves in. And I would not be surprised if a lot of these Sony Spider-Man universe movies have had very similar conversations bouncing around their meetings. It's maddening, and it does good for no one. So what are my solutions for this? It's the same solution I've said for a couple years now, because I've started to make more discussion-based videos about the industry and how we can communicate with them and get back.
This is really good. Like, I think I've already praised it enough, but this is good.
Better films and start to enjoy the theater-going experience more, and not just hope that a great film like Godzilla -1 comes out of Japan so that we can enjoy that here. And it's the same thing I've always said. They hear us through our wallets. If a movie comes out that is genuinely great and we happen to see it in a theater, that's fantastic. But then buy it to own on digital or buy the Blu-ray of it. Let them know, like, this is more like.
I am getting to the point where I'm like a big supporter of just getting physical media. I know it's easy to stream stuff, and I do stream most stuff anymore, but there's so many goddamn streaming services, and they're always jumping. Oh, this one has this movie this week. This one has this movie this week, and it's insane. And physical media, you just have it, and that is a value. And like, you know, and sometimes on streaming services, they'll decide to re-edit a movie and put it back up. That's not common. That's only like really big movies. But occasionally they will do shit like that. And if you have the physical copy, they aren't re-editing shit. You got it.
It. And that's what we're getting with Oppenheimer. It's what we're getting with Barbie. When you see a movie where it's like...
Yeah, exactly, Dane. He's actually criticizing the movie. He's not... Well, he's not criticizing it directly. He's criticizing the system that makes a movie like Madam Web. Like... And we brought up on stream yesterday, who the fuck wants a Madam Web movie? Fucking nobody. No, nobody cares about Madam Web. Like, she's a supporting character who she's an NPC in a video game that gives Spider-Man quests. Nobody wants a movie about that, but we got one. Why? Because Sony has the rights to the character. That's it.
Like, okay, that creator, Greta Gerwig, took an IP, Barbie, and made a completely original movie out of it, and it became...
But she was also given some freedom, too. That's a big difference. Essentially, it seems like with Barbie, they gave it to Greta Gerwig and said, have fun. And she and her husband, Noah Baumbach, did have some fun with it. I think they both worked on the script together, and then she directed it. Noah Baumbach's got some good movies behind his... on his resume as well. Marriage Story, which I believe is just a Netflix movie, fucking amazing movie. Fantastic.
And the highest grossing film of the year, and it's nominated for multiple Oscars, even though she totally should have been nominated for director. They hear that. They understand, all right, so IP is...
Yeah, actually, so Barbie getting nominated for Best Picture and Best Actor surprises me, but I actually do think it should have gotten nominated for Best Director. Like... That surprises me the most. Like, if you're going to nominate Barbie for anything, Best Director, Greta Gerwig deserves the nomination.
Ish, but original. Got it. And that's okay. Like, there's so many openings for filmmakers to take very original ideas into things. In an ideal, perfect industry, the filmmaker-studio relationship would be more of an understanding, loving relationship. But the problem right now is that so many studio executives... people who are making the decisions did not come from a place of creativity. They were potentially managers or agents or people outside of the...
It's capitalism. Capitalism. The goal is make money. And when your only goal is to make money and there's no other goal at all, you end up with some real shit.
the creative space in Hollywood who work their way into a place where they're now telling creatives what to do. That's not the case for all of them, but it is the case for many of them. And they don't have ideas. They just have like inklings of what the market might want. What's selling big? What's not selling big? Well, we need to go towards this path because that movie sold really big. People are looking for this. Our Netflix algorithm is suggesting that we need to make a movie about kung fu pirates who also cook. Like, that's what's happening, and it sounds like a joke, but I'm swear to you, it's not. It's not a joke. So people have been put in positions of power who want to be creative, but aren't creative. But they're put in a position where they now have to tell creatives what to do. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these things that you're seeing in film lately. And the hopes are that more filmmakers are able to break through with like an indie film. Look at Nolan. He was able to kind of prove himself.
Dumb and Dumber. Real quick, what you say here. The main take I disagree with is that there wasn't passion behind this. S.J. Clarkson had a lot to say about what drew her to the story in interviews, and every character like this have fans. I don't know if there's a whole lot of actual Madam Web fans. I have never met a Madam Web fan, ever. And I will also say, S.J. Clarkson in interviews for this, saying she had a passion, that's kind of her job. She's going to go and make, she's going to, when she does an interview, a promotional interview for this movie, she's going to talk about how, she thought this was a cool idea and she's going to do it because that's her job during the promotional interview. These promotional interviews are part of their jobs. And your second example there is Silk. I have met Silk fans. I'm a Silk fan. I think Silk's a decent character. Silk has way more of a following than Madam Web.
He took those steps. You know what I mean? In the case of a lot of these filmmakers who make their first movie as a giant studio film, the studio does not look at that filmmaker as if they are an equal. They look at them as if they're someone they can boss around and tell them what to do because they're paying the bills and what have you done exactly? And that's a lot of what we're seeing now. So pay for movies that are good. Keep paying for movies that are good. That's the only way that we can turn the dial to where it needs to be. Guys, thank you so much, as always, for watching.
That was just some base takes. Great video. Fantastic video. You know what? We need more people to do this. We have people who talk about, mass downvotes. Guys, just go give this video a like. Give this stream a like, too, by the way. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that jazz. I got a Patreon. I got memberships. You can see all the old streams through memberships. Do all the algorithm stuff for me, and then give Chris Stuckmann's video here a like because it's awesome. Let's do some mass positivity. And yeah, let's see what the fuck EFAP even has to say about this, because this is just base takes.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.